Had my little stained city St. Helens shirts made up because we have a bunch of crap on.
And chat with you.
Except for
Ready?
I know.
Okay, today is Wednesday, March 1st at 2 p.m. and we're gonna start with our work session. Do we have any visitor comments?
Oh, God.
State your name for the record.
Doug Morton, and I'm here to congratulate all the new council for being on board. I've been watching, and it's interesting to me how congenial all of you are. And the most important thing now is why I'm here is I want to see how Jessica is going to handle all of this. I came down specifically just to see how that is going to function. So what I'm going to say is really not much. I'm just going to see how you handle silence, because that's how I had to deal with when I was a teacher. And as you well know, when the whole classroom gets quiet, there's trouble. So well, I'm going to see how that works. Do I have another minute?
57.
Are there any issues you'd like to talk about?
No, not really. I mean, I'm excited for you guys to continue on the riverfront district. I hope you pick up a lot of momentum as things go along. And I hope you're open to people who come into our city and want to do some projects. Especially on the waterfront. I know that in the past, we had one developer who wanted to do the entire thing. And I kind of think that if you open that up and allow developers to come in and say, I would like to do 2 acres, 3 acres, and this is what my project's going to look like, that you maintain that flexibility to allow that to happen. Rather than if you're going to parcel it out, 2 acres, 2 acres, 4 acres, 5 acres, and then that pigeonholes any developer to do something in that. Let the developers have what they think that they can do, because they've got a creative consciousness of a building can fit into a 2 acre parcel or a 1 acre parcel or a 10 or a 12 acre parcel. So let that happen if you can. And I think that's going to allow a lot more creativity, ingenuity. And I think you'll be way ahead of the curve. I just think I think that'd be real important as the riverfront develops. That's basically what one of the kinds of issues that I got left with that I wanted to say before as a council. Nice to see you and welcome aboard. I never had an opportunity to say welcome aboard to both of you.
Thank
See you in Arts and Cultural Commission.
Anytime, Doug.
Take care.
Anyone online, Kathy? No. Okay, we'll move to our first agenda item, which is the annual report from Main Street.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here to talk about Main Street. My name is Amara Lebout. I am the executive director. I was hired for Main Street in July. So let's kick this off. We're going to kick it off with the national Main Street is national and statewide. So I just want to kind of quickly go over the missions between national, state, and our Main Street. So the Main Street approach is a common sense, strategy-driven framework that guides downtown revitalization efforts, building off of 4 decades of success. This model harnesses the social, economic, physical, and cultural assets that set a place apart. The Oregon Main Street mission works with communities to develop local, comprehensive downtown revitalization strategies based on the methodology developed by Main Street America. What I really love about Main Street is they have this really great thing called R&D. It's rip off and duplicate. So What works really well in other main streets and this goes on nationwide and statewide is they are more than happy to share the information, which makes it a lot easier, especially when you're new like we are and developing programs. Every Thursday we meet, it's called Mornings on Main. So it's all of the executive directors that come together and we just talk about anything that we either need help with or our successes with. And it's really like this beautiful backing. So you always feel supported by it. Next slide. So here in St. Helens, a volunteer group organized in 2009 known as the St. Helens Economic Development Corporation, known as SHEDCO, joined the network as an exploring downtown level. It's now been moved to the connected community. So the Main Street Alliance is to build high quality, livable and sustainable community that will grow St. Helens economy while maintaining a sense of place. So next slide. How Main Street works. The national Main Street approach is in 4 categories. So, and I apologize about this graphic, I stretched it as much beyond its capacity. So economic vitality is building a diverse economic base, catalyze smart new investment, cultivate a strong entrepreneurship ecosystem. Design is creating and inviting an exclusive or inclusive atmosphere, excuse me. Celebrating our historic character, foster accessible, people-centered public spaces. Organization is build leadership and strong organizational capacity, ensure broad community engagement, forge partnerships across sectors. Promotion is market districts defining assets, communicate unique features through storytelling, and support buy local experience. All 4 are comprehensive approaches, grassroots and community-driven, asset-based, time-tested and adapted methodology. Oh, go ahead. So in 2020, an evaluation of the program was done by the Oregon Main Street Coordinator and provided the recommendations and a path forward. So this is where SHEDCO is now Main Street doing business as. So the community asset or assessment process included an online survey, which 126 responses were received. The Board of Directors online survey and 7 responses were received. And then one-on-one phone call conversations based on lists provided by SHEDCO at the time. And they had 16 conversations ranging from 30 to 60 minutes. So the summary report for SHEDCO that included observation and recommendations moving forward with the downtown revitalization effort. So this is pulled from that 2020 report. Based on all the sources of information reviewed, the Main Street structure is a good match for St. Helens. Fundamentally, community members want to see a beautiful, revitalized downtown and uptown, which is what we call Bolton, that respects the town's history, heritage, and character while offering a mix of businesses that meet local needs, but are also enticing to visitors. The Main Street structure can help the community achieve this vision by restructuring the board, which we've done, hiring an executive director, which I'm here, and then working on our 4-point committees. Sorry, thank you. And so that's where we are at right now. Let's see. So I pulled from this graphic from the 2020 thing, and it just had a bunch of, it's like a word thing that they pulled in. It's like potential, empty, underutilized, rundown, beautiful, quaint, historic. There's a couple of friendly, charming, wasted, and vacant. So that's kind of what I like to use as a base. Okay, next one. So our current activities, in January, we held our first Main Street Alliance board retreat, and it was really great. We got, it was all of us, and we used Miss Rachel Berry as our facilitator to help run it. So we just watched the Oregon Main Street video. We got to know our fellow board members and just kind of all talk about our history, our why, and why this mission for us and our board members is really important to them. We also did an exercise called What Does High Performance Look Like in Our Organization? And then we did a SWOT. So the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We did like a whole overview of our board handbooks and just did like what each committee breakdown is, what the responsibility of the chair for that. Just really kind of, it was a lot of information, but we had a great use of our time. And then let's see. So, in February, last month, we had a evaluation and conversation with our, committee, or executive committee with Sherry Stewart, who's the Oregon Main Street coordinator, and she gave us really great feedback. And she believes that we are ready to apply to become a designated Main Street this year, which is a big deal. So it opens in November. And then, following that, we are hopeful that another community assessment will be done in 2024, which is part of becoming that designated Main Street tier. So, okay. Next graphic, that's okay. I got kind of ambitious and said that we are affiliate or accredited. We are not yet, but we will be. And so right now, we are the affiliated, which I gave you guys in your little handout, is the level for communities who are starting to form their Main Street structure and learning how to use the powerful Main Street methodology to create lasting impacts and enhancing their historic downtown or traditional commercial neighborhood. So, and then moving up to the designated is just a bigger mark of distinction for us. We really want to get that. We really want to be accredited, but let's do baby steps, right? So next slide, thank you. And I'm sorry if I'm going really fast, slightly nervous. I can talk quick. So this was the SWOT analysis that we did during our board retreat. And under all of the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, the top 3 were the ones that were mostly talked about in our little notepad discussion. So we have a really engaged board, a healthy city partnership, which we thank you for, and we have a really engaged board. We talked about inactive storefronts, buy-in, a little bit of absence from partnerships, and just a little bit of lack of long-term goals, which we're working on. And then, we have this beautiful green space and river space, and that things are always moving forward and the demographics are changing. And the threats were not being at the table, internal and external. This is just like the whole thing. So it's not necessarily us, but it's where we could be if we don't keep on track. I know it's a lot to look at too, and I did stretch this graphic as far as I could too. Okay. So, here's where our 4 active committees are. So the organization committee is really our powerhouse. This is where we've spent a lot of our time since hiring me to just get like our infrastructure at a really good point. So developing a community communication strategy, just making sure that everything is good with Facebook and website and all of that. Developing how we want to utilize volunteers and at what capacity, training them and retaining our boards and committee job descriptions. We have an Oregon Main Street board training on March 9th, so that our new board members and anybody who wants a refresher will be able to attend this and just get updated information. So then our promotions committee is capitalizing on small town charm through storytelling, what's growing on the Main. We should have another one coming up for what new businesses are coming up. And then just creating some events and placemaking activities that are important to the Main Street mission. Our one that we're really excited about is the Dias de los Muertos event, which we are acting as fiscal sponsor for Letty Sison Juarez. I believe that's how she pronounced it. And we are really excited for this opportunity because it just really is a great space to have this inclusive feeling that's culturally diverse, and that's really important to our Main Street. And then we have our Scarecrow project, which takes a lot, it uses all of our committees to have that capacity. Scarecrows are actually a full-time job sometimes in Halloween Town. You wouldn't believe it. And then we're working on doing a street market. So I feel like I put in street market in a couple different slides, but the street market is going to be just kind of our testing market to what could be called a farmer's market, but we don't want to commit to every weekend for like the months of the summer. We want it to be testing. So it's going to be one day a month, shutting down a street and just making sure that it's an experience. It's something for our families that they can gather and come to and just see the community, engage with the community, and feel really good about being out and about, because we need that. And it will be held uptown. So kind of bridging that downtown uptown gap. Let's see. Oh, thank you. So, design committee, this is really beautifying our main street. So, improving the look of vacant spaces, cleaning up and maintaining, education for building owners and volunteer opportunities for work plan, placemaking project opportunities. And then it also is the MailChimp website, social media. We do some work in that. We're making it look beautiful. And then I talk about the Scarecrow project, which we partnered with Parks and Rec. So in the past, you know, the business is putting out scarecrows, that takes some of their bandwidth, and they don't quite have that during Halloween Town. So we had the great idea of partnering with Parks and Recs to allow kids and families and other entities, like if St. Helens Youth Football wanted to have a scarecrow, we would build it, or they would build it, and then I would help put it out on the street and just kind of maintenance. And I drove the street every morning during Halloween Town, and just making sure that if one of them looked, you know, like wobbly, I would pull it out and take care of it and put it back in. So it didn't put it on the businesses, and that was a really great, like, strengthening partnership for the businesses on Main Street. And then we were awarded 2 grants from the Columbia County Cultural Coalitions. And so one of them is for the future scarecrows of next year, so they'll have stronger spines. And then for the Dias de los Muertos event. The Economic Vitality Committee works to develop a market strategy for the district that will result in an improved retail mix, a stronger tax base, increased investor confidence, and a strong role for the district as a major component of the district's economic health. So this is where our Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant, that is in that committee, and they do a ton of work. They are a very active committee, as well as updating Maestro. So Maestro is a community manager. It's like a platform. We can put in all the properties, we can put in businesses, when they became, how many employees they have, their hours, anything. So we can pull from this database and have it just all organized. We can make reports and things on that. It also tracks our volunteer hours, which we have a lot because we have a really active board. So it allows us to have that information. So looking forward to the future. So this is just kind of breaking down into our committees. So the organization is just keep moving forward with, you know, communications and well-supported board and volunteers. And we now do a quarterly reporting to Oregon Main Street, which is part of that Maestro program. I'll be able to, as long as I keep tracking it's a lot of information that we have to report to. So anytime there's any like streetscape improvement, I can use it and put it into that report and put it into Oregon Main Street. This is where this report, they pull from their Oregon Main Street annual report and put it together so they can show the impact of how everything's going. And so, yes, the promotion with the Dias de los Muertos and the street market, and then the Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant. And then I put in the Gateway feature exploration because I've had a couple people talk to me about the potential of a gateway, and I'm here to say that Main Street wants to be a part of it and wants to help. So, and then just really focusing on what's going on with downtown as the new construction happens, but also bridging this gap between uptown so that everybody kind of feels the love and it's spread. So just maintaining that strong partnership between all of it, but also bridging the gap between uptown and downtown. Thank you. So partnerships are a huge key for growth for us. So I pulled my sweet Pinterest quote. Individually, we are one drop, but together we are an ocean. And that's really important to us. So partnering with the communications team just to ensure that the businesses while under construction are greatly represented between the city and Main Street. Partnering with Keep It Local, Columbia County, and the SBDC to make high quality referrals to businesses seeking assistance. We have a great partnership. Anytime Sierra has any, questions or needs any assistance, or if she wants me to team up with her for anything, we're doing a social media evaluation for small businesses. So if they are just having roadblocks with social media, I'll be able to help them, just kind of guide them, and if they need any, improvements or what they could be potentially doing wrong or what they could keep doing more of, that's right. And then the small business social media shout out campaign, that's just kind of taking anything for instance, Richardson's, when they have really great reviews, it's kind of that vulnerable space of them sharing a great review on their own, but making it have a bigger entity. So it's just spreading it a little bit wider, which is important for their voices to be heard too. So then we closed out the Columbia Theater upgrade in 2021. That was a great success. And then now we have the Klondike, which is starting the improvements of their structure. And then now we are doing a 2023 grant round. Yes. So thank you for letting me be here. Obviously, this can only be done through the same goals and values and love for our beautiful city, which is important to all of us here. So yeah. Any questions? I feel like I blew right through that, but I'm sorry.
Well, actually, I don't think we argue with people who kind of. And as long as we don't interrupt either, so.
Couple of things. Okay, so how many people are on the committees? I'm
So-
curious about how many people are involved.
So we have 11 board members right now, and then each board member chairs a committee, and so and the committees range. So like economic vitality has like 5 to 6, but it kind of depends on like the capacity of them too, because obviously sickness goes around. So I would say 3 to 5 on each committee, and it varying, and knowing that we're always trying to grow it. You know what I mean? Because it's more having 3 to 5 sustainably doesn't work, because that just kind of causes burnout, and we don't want that. We want people to feel really good about being on a committee. So, but yeah. Yeah.
That's still a good amount of people that are, talking about things and finding things.
Yeah.
And then so the ultimate goal is to get to that accredited level, what are the benefits once we've reached that?
It's just more about what the national Main Street provides for you. So
Grants or?
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of different things. There's grants, there's just recognition, there's a lot more guidance on that platform, and they will help do the reviews. So in our tier that we're in right now, affiliated, not the accredited, we get to receive the free assessments done by the Main Street, and then once we get to a higher level, it'll be done on the national level. So it'll do not comparisons, but they'll be able to evaluate us and say, hey, you should work on this, and then just having a lot more guidance. But it is done through a membership. So, and we'll be able to get more awards based on that, and just more recognition for the work that's being done. So, back when Shedco first established it, it was the connected community. So they're saying, hey, we have what it takes, but now show us, and then they'll give you information. But when you get to the higher levels, it's just a lot more guidance and a lot more evaluations. So which means, now we have the quarterly reporting. When we were just the connected community, we just had to do an annual. So they want us to have more information at hand to just be able to keep guiding us and making our community better.
And did I understand correctly that in November, it should be designated?
So in November, the application process starts, but it goes until March. And then getting to that point, well, we want to allow ourselves some time to be at the designated tier to get the 2024 assessment done, which is just, it's a lot of great information. And anytime you guys have any questions, I can easily send you the impact report and anything like that. But it's a lot of information to soak in.
Scappoose is on the list of connected communities.
I was kind of surprised by that. I didn't know that, and I had talked to the gals who do the historical, the Watts thing, and I was trying to give them information, but it's really about how they will like zone or map themselves out for that. But I did reach out to, or I had the community, or Klatsk and I reach out to me, and I gave them as much information as I could. I believe they're gonna,
County
yeah.
communities that are in this program that you're aware of.
Just us thus far that I know of. I saw, when I was looking at my slide deck error, I printed this out to fix it and I was like, oh, yeah, it is. So I'm gonna have to dig around, but I know that Clatskanie is looking to be a connected community, which is the ultimate goal, you know, having a lot of Columbia County be a part of it, because we do have historical downtowns and we have a pretty big district between our downtown and our uptown, so we have a really big mapped out area, and hoping that as the riverfront district gets more improvement, that they will expand it, because I believe that it only goes to like the Klondike, which puts out like the old dockside and past that area, so they're gonna reevaluate it and expand the map, which makes it even bigger. So,
You're
elected, so wait.
So I'm looking back at the SWOT. Under the threats, the one bullet, it's not in the top three, but you did have a bullet point about losing city partnership. Is that, I know that we are supporting financially for a time,
for a time,
and
yes.
that's for a time. Is that what you're referring to, or?
No, we
Other,
always want everything to be communicated and have like forward momentum with it, because that's the ultimate goal. We can't do this without any other, you know, but no, it's not just a financial thing. It's just about being in good standings. It's important to the Main Street Alliance.
okay, because you're not sensing from the city that we're
No.
even talking about it, because I think, yeah.
That's why it's just you're throwing it out there.
Oh, yeah, we've done SWATs, I understand, so that's why I wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that, because I think,
Seeing if there's any way that the city could strengthen that.
well, in a way I am, or just, yeah, that we can continue, I mean, no need to ask right now, but just to say, I think, before I was elected, I did participate, when Mary Stewart did the communicate, the
Yeah.
analysis with
2020.
Shedco, and I've just been impressed ever since then about the willingness of everybody involved to take that to heart, look at that and improve, and was really pleased when the council, I guess, again, I think that was before we were, for President Chilton and I, Council President Chilton. Hey, you know, on the line to make that commitment for finances, helping to finance, and then ever since then, I've just been delighted in the number of social occasions, opportunities where I have encountered members of the Main Street Alliance and involvement, and just really firmly believe that that the city made a good investment and continue to make a good investment. And we've certainly, even though that particular source of funding may not continue from the city, I am confident that we will partner in so many other ways.
And that's a huge part of it too, to continue that. I mean, we know that the annual support that you guys provide us, which is great and it's wonderful, is going to eventually have to move on, and we have to grow it from what it is today to what we need it to be. But no matter what, there's always going to be a partnership for the city and Main Street, as long as there's really great communication, and these and our quarterly meetings that we have with John, just to make sure everything's great.
Yeah.
Communication is key, transparency is key.
Absolutely. And I think you have been doing that, I mean, you personally, but also your board members and all the participants, so. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
My comment was gonna build on Councilor Berkeley's, is the way, why invest in Main Street? And an observation is that if you look at this list and the succession of how you move up from affiliated to designated to accredited, and you look at those communities that are on the list, we get all these communities, like all of them have had national street conferences in their communities, which is pretty impressive for.
So there's now officially 104 Main Streets in the state of Oregon. And Clatskanie is not on that list yet, but we're gonna get it there. But so many of these, I mean, even like on the mornings on Main, there's usually 35 to 40 executive directors or city representatives in the Main Streets. They all they all see the value in Main Street program.
Part two comment was you mentioned wanting to be supportive of the gateway features,
Yeah.
and we have two of them.
Okay.
There's one that's adopted part of our gateway master plan. It's Jenny Dimshaw and others worked. Helpful, everybody worked on that one. It's more towards by the chamber up there.
Yeah.
Entrance features, a gateway across the top. There's one we're talking about later on the agenda, which is the First and St. Helens Street Gateway. I'm expecting your answer to be, want to be involved as.
Oh, yeah.
So stick around.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really exciting, and I've said this before, and I said it in my interview, and I'll say it, and I'll continue it, but I know when I moved here when I was 19 years old, I didn't come with my family, I had to establish my roots here, and then I became a mother, and I would walk the downtown or the uptown, and I know what I want to see for our kids, for our children, and have their needs met here, and if they leave our community, it's for the adventure, not for the need, and I will continue that.
I like that.
Thank you.
Very well
Not
put.
for the-
Yeah.
For the event.
And I always get like real shaky because I'm emotional about it, because I passionately believe it.
Yes.
So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm running away.
I would say thank you that you're nothing but positive things now, and that wasn't always the case, so. I think you did a Great job, keep it up.
Thank you. It's important to us.
To you too.
Yeah.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have an update from the Small Business Development Center.
Good afternoon, counselors. For those that don't know me, my name is Jason Moon. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center here in Columbia County. We are 1 year old today. Thank you. The first several months of that 1 year, I was drinking from the fire hose, which is SBA and Oregon Small Business Development Center Network onboarding. And I'm proud to say that now, being a year in, we're about 90 clients and over 300 advising hours. Many of those are businesses or entrepreneurs here in St. Helens. So again, I'd like to thank the city of St. Helens for your support and commitment, not only to the Small Business Development Center, but to my host, the Columbia Economic Team. And I want to thank partners like Main Street. Even counselors here in Rachel Berry. Many people have been referring St. Helens businesses or potential businesses to the SBDC, and we're really thankful for that. Currently, I'm a one-person show. That's going to be changing here very soon. I'm going to be hiring an advisor and a part-time admin, which is needed. I'm doing everything, and the need is so high that we really want to increase the quality of advising that we're providing to businesses. So some of you may have heard this stat from me before, but I know there's some new faces on the council. Something I like to lead with is 75% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. Very doom and gloom. However, when a business seeks business advising and sets up a business plan, there's a 65% success rate that business makes it past that 5 years. So that's one of the reasons that the Small Business Development Center is here in Columbia County, to ensure that those businesses stay and that they are here for more than 5 years. So we have the designation SBDC. I really like to refer to us as a resource center as well. The R isn't in there, but so many businesses and entrepreneurs are coming to us for resources, whether that's city resources, could be access to capital, grants, stuff of that nature, just general connecting. Feel like I'm pretty involved in the community, so I'm always trying to help business owners connect with whether it's city or county entities or other business owners to help strengthen and grow the best business that they can. So as I mentioned, we're the 20th center in Oregon. We're the newest. We're the only center that's not affiliated with community college. I think that's something to be very proud about. again, wouldn't be possible without each individual city within this county being stakeholders, St. Helens being one of those stakeholders. So we're sort of breaking the mold. We're thinking outside of the box as it pertains to small business development centers, not only in Oregon, but the nation. So they're looking at this model to hopefully replicate it in other areas, not only in Oregon, but nationwide. For those that don't know, for the other offerings of the SBDC, we do free one-on-one confidential business advising. That's probably our number one resource to business owners here in the county. So they can come to the SBDC, get free business advising. They can talk about whatever it is, their idea or their idea for growth, and it doesn't leave the SBDC. So they have that confidential business advising that they can take, leave, grow with. I help a lot with business development and business planning development and management of those plans. So many businesses don't even have a plan. I've talked to businesses that have been in place for 5, 10, 15 years and have never created a business plan. So helping them step through what that process looks like, and especially when it pertains to growth and staying here in Columbia County. I mentioned loan packaging and access to capital. That's another major piece, is just getting business owners access to money. Right now, there's not a lot of grants available. There might be some coming down the pipe here soon, but just getting those business owners prepared to be lendable. When I worked at the credit union, many stories of people walking in with a shoebox full of receipts or Venmo or PayPal on their phones. During the pandemic, and it was really a struggle to get money into the hands of those people. So again, walking and talking through those steps of what it takes to be lendable, whether it's traditional lending or micro lending or grant funding. We offer marketing plan strategies, again, connecting to resources, whether that's legal, accounting, professional resources, navigating business regulations, hiring, managing, retaining teams, which is super important right now. Succession planning, working with some clients that are looking to sell their business, but maybe it's to a manager that's working for them, a family member, so on and so on. So we're just really trying to help businesses navigate some of those things and give them those resources and equip them with those tools that they didn't previously have before the SBDC came here. This little housekeeping, aimed at year-end reporting with the SBA, which took a very long time. It was my first go around of end of year reporting. I feel very well versed now in what the SBA requires from us as far as reporting and quarterly goes. Again, that's where those numbers came from earlier. We're hovering right around 90 clients and about 300 business hours or advising hours. Last year, we launched with partnership with Keep It Local, our Marketing for Success series. It was a classes that went through September and October, weekly, free to any business owner or entrepreneur here within Columbia County. Super successful. We had 72 businesses participate, 169 attendances total for those classes. And again, many of those who attended were residents or businesses here in St. Helens. Lastly, I believe Kathy had sent over a questionnaire. I know that many of you have filled that out. I really appreciate that feedback. Again, you are a stakeholder in the center. Your feedback is very important, not only to me, but the citizens of the city. And I appreciate you taking the time. If you have any questions around the questions, call me, email me. I'm happy to meet with you in person or whatever it is to talk about what we're doing at the Small Business Development Center. Currently, I'm assembling an advisory committee, and right now I think I have a pretty good candidate that's a business owner in St. Helens. My hope for the advisory committee is that I have a different business owner from each city within the county that would represent the interests of that city. So again, if you have any business owners that you know of that want to be involved with the SBDC in any way, whether that's advising or sitting on my committee, feel free to reach out, call, email. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me about the SBDC or the work that we're doing here in the county.
Currently in the Columbia Learning Center, right?
Currently,
With plans to move here in the near future.
yeah, so that the county has an in-kind space that they're giving to us for the gun building. Hopefully, I was told that originally when I came on last year that we were in that building at the end of 2022, and I think everyone knows that that's not going to happen until probably 2024. So I am working part-time out of there, working part-time out of my home, but mostly I'm out in the field, meeting with business owners either at their business or wherever they feel comfortable. I utilize community spaces, whether it's at the chamber, PTC has really nice space that I've been able to meet clients at, local coffee shops, Crooked Creek Brewing,
Yes.
wherever people feel most comfortable.
Seal, you know.
Yeah. So it's sort of a mobile office, but yes, we're sharing the space with Columbia Economic Team and Colpac at the library.
So how does one get involved? Not like us, but like a business or someone who's just trying to start their own business.
So it's involved in the sense that they need advising.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can just simply email or call me.
Use a
And
website.
yeah, we have a website. Because we are partially funded by the FBA and the Oregon Network, it's a requirement that each client fills out this little link. It just gives, they want to gather general information about them and their business. So once they fill out that link, then I'm authorized to then start advising. It's sort of like a, speaking that confidentiality agreement. So,
Any other questions?
I'm glad you're here. It reminded me that I was supposed to provide some contact.
you were supposed to.
Information to you and vice versa. When I last saw him, there's a gentleman who lives along Milton Creek on Hankey Road. Yeah, up Hankey, who makes maple syrup. And I'm thinking we have a lot of big leaf maple on city property. Like talking to this guy, we could offer a franchisee system to make St. Helens Select maple syrup. Anyway, but it is really good. I see you out in the community a lot, not just in the formal, your formal role, and I think that's really great. That that people aren't just coming to you, you're out, you're accessible in the community, and the synergy that's creating with Main Street, with Keep It Local, with the chamber, things are really coming together.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping to do more of that sort of outreach piece. Right now the need, it's just been coming in. There hasn't been a lot of outreach other than being out in the community and having conversations. But yeah, my hope, I know Rachel's from New England, but St. Helens will dethrone New England as the maple syrup capital of the world. I'm sure of it. So
I don't know about that, but it's good syrup.
I did a whole gang of gentlemen last night that are really, really wanting to get a golf course started back up in St. Helens. So I'm gonna be sending them your way.
that sounds great. Appreciate that.
Scrub, golf.
Yeah, we want it all.
You do.
Sure.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you for your time.
Just to the point of reference, prior to having this local small business resource center, we didn't have it.
Right.
I mean, our nearest base was Lloyd Center, I believe, so close.
Yeah, and not to speak ill of PCC, the PCC, we were their attachment, so they were supposed to service all of Columbia County, so even North County. And it just wasn't happening. And the requirement of them at the time, at least pre-pandemic, was that if you wanted business advising, then yes, you would go down to the Lloyd Center, which was their closest office to us. But now, we're
Local, right?
yes, and yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Okay, I don't see, oh, there's John. Hi, John. All right, next up, we have our your budget report. John Ellis.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd be very interested to see if they're gonna start growing cactuses and doing agave. I put agave on everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I put it on my yogurt and sir.
Yeah, yeah, so.
That's great.
First of all, I understand you don't have enough paper at the dais, so
Thank you.
It's not that small.
No, it's my eyes. Okay, my eyes, it's not.
And don't worry, we're not reading every line there, the reference starts. Okay.
Measure success.
Well, you know. I work for a number of small cities down in California and they always love getting detail. And then when I went to work for Salem, you know, that went way down. Or they put me at the end of the night when the mayor says, we're almost running out of time. Can you finish this 5 seconds, you know, in 10 seconds? Okay, yeah, I can.
Gotta be short and sweet, huh?
So then I fell back into my detail habits when I got back up here in a small city. So yeah, so before we jump into the presentation, there's a couple of Scrivener's opportunities I'd like to point out. And that is in the staff report. There's a table embedded in the report. And if you go to supplement 2, that's the report I handed out is the supplement 2 label. And it just shows, you know, personal services, the projected cost at the end of June 30th, which is too difficult to project. When you know, okay, we have this many vacant positions and this is when they're going to be filled, and then you project them.
I like that you put those explanations in there about, you know, why those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But embedded in there, for some reason, when I copied and then pasted here, the third line under public works, which is engineering, dropped out of the table, but the subtotals are all right, so just hidden in there, I guess, or whatever. So I felt like I needed to share that because they were they're projected to be over their budget. But it's because they took a vacant position, reclassed it and put it in here from facilities. So that's, but in aggregate that, you know, Public Works Fund will still see projected 270,000 in savings. That'll be below the personnel costs that we were originally budgeted. And then in the general fund is 332,000, which I want to point out right now that I would recommend that is savings. It doesn't get reallocated to materials and supplies and other things, because as we go along, we'll be looking at revenues a little bit. We're doing a lot more on revenues than I did the first time because I didn't have much to work with. So, but so that's it. And there'll be down and there'll be ups. And right now the general fund looks good because we got another 400,000 more in ARPA than we expected, you know, because they gave us 2 years worth this year. So it was spread out 3 years. We got, yeah. So we'll touch base on that because we do have a reconciliation worksheet of ARPA and how much funds we'll have remaining at the end of this year. So let's see, what else can I, oh yeah, and then supplement 3. I should have given it to you before, you know, I just too tired and running out of it. You know, there's a million ways to present this stuff. And supplemental 3 is all the requested adjustments to the budget that will be rolled into the proposed public hearing for next meeting, March 15th. And it's easier to read because I matched up the first quarter and then what we're recommending in this quarter. They're combined. And then also there were 7 numbers that I had to tweak, adjust. Those are the Scrivener errors. And they're green highlighted on that worksheet. So, you know, so you'll see. Okay. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump into the presentation if you're. Okay, so today we're doing a presentation on the budget analysis as of December 31st, but really we have like almost 2 whole months more. I kind of dipped into a little more now, but I didn't have time to do the whole thing and drop it in here, so. So the numbers that you see in all the reports, were December 31st. So today we're gonna go over a mid-year budget review. We're gonna review the recommended budget amendments. I don't think there's much to review, you know, went over a lot of it last time, third quarter review. And then look at how it impacts the funds and then the process created to supplement budget. Required. And then we'll talk a little bit about ARPA fund status. We would like you, you'll have a budget calendar in there for this, for 23-24. That we would like council to adopt or approve. Yeah, I guess it's just for their approval.
On the regular session tonight.
I don't know, it's not, the resolution is,
Consensus.
oh yeah, okay, thank you. It's been 6 years, I don't know what it's called. Well, that's, I guess, the first true call of age. So, and then the conclusion. I can jump right to the conclusion, be done if you want to do. No, okay, so this next section is the review of revenue expenditures exceptions by fund types. Now, I'm, so used to always putting out, by department, the detail, budget, actual, projected, stuff like that. And I don't think you want all that paper. I'm just giving you the highlights of what's occurring. And a lot of it because it's in the supplemental budget that we're preparing, so on the first slide, I'm just going to give you a high level, general fund revenue highlight. Now, here's a good thing. If you want to refer to supplement 1, you'll see some of the significant revenues that make up a bulk of, other than grants and debt. It's, the shared revenues from the state, the DMV, as well as cigarette and alcohol and so on. You'll see the property taxes. Now, the property taxes takes quite a bit of work because initially I just did back of the envelope. Oh, we collected 81% last year at this time. So I'll just divide by 81 and times by 100, and there, there will be our gross number that we would expect based on normal flows. Well, it doesn't work like that. But, we got money a little later than we did last year. So all of a sudden it just blew my. So I had to go off of like 4 different reports from the county. They sent out 2 reports around between October and December of last year for next year's budget for assessed values. And then they shore it up when we set it in our tax levies. So when they get that, then they shore it up and send out a whole bunch of other reports. So it's a lot more fine tuning and analysis on that. So, okay, right now we expected increase in the beginning fund balance of 464, but that's still unaudited. It could be, there are several things that could be moving on that. So, but we'll go over that when we give the budget, when we give the audit presentation, which I was hoping to be March 15th, but it probably be beginning of April. Maybe Gloria will be doing that. I'll be in the background. So we see a decrease in property taxes, but on the urban renewal agency area, they're up 46%. So they're gonna.
The URA is right.
Yeah, urban renewal agency. Yeah, so and that complicates the calculating what your projection of property taxes will be, because they used to call it, they called it in Salem the 800-pound gorilla because everybody got a line on URA no matter where they lived in the city, and they all complained, well, wait a minute, that's not near us, why are we? Well, what happens is they know exactly what the valuation is in the URA, but when they do the taxes out, it's a separate item, kind of floats away from the rest of the taxes. So everybody loses some. So they just allocate it across all all the taxing districts. So, and it shows up on everybody's tax bill. So it's kind of confusing. That in a nutshell makes it a lot harder to project what the property taxes that the general fund will receive. Yeah, yeah. But again. Then the revenue share is kind of neutral, cannabis drops, but all the others, alcohol, even cigarette tax increased a percent or two. So, and then on the franchise, there's taxes and in lieu franchise taxes, which are from Comcast and so on. But they're up, and the main reason they're up is we recovered a couple quarters that didn't get reported last year, so. And then with interest, they give us, so. But in lieu is kind of down, and I'm still scratching my head how that was calculated. Because usually what you do, you take your top, and it's in the supplemental, you take your top supplemental, your top sales in water, sewer, storm, and then just time by 10%. And anyway, that. I don't know how it came up with, but it's down. Building permits look like, well, it might not be 175, it might be 100 to 135.
We're up because we just actually started charging for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, so. But it's all related to all the improvements and stuff, properties. The ARPA funds, ARPA, but we'll discuss that further. I mentioned it already. The distribution of opioid settlement to the city. We started getting money back in, and we got like 3 lumps payments from August to now, totaling 64,000. And then I understand Rich already gave you a report on that. And we are moving and reporting 32,000 in the general fund to offset the additional expenditures in the police department for the canine. So that's
From the opioid money.
right. So, and the other 34,000 is sitting in community enhancement reserved, and any expenditures will flow through there from here. But they already incurred the cost of the dog. So, and then we show 65,000 down in interest. And that main reason is interests look like they're going to be greater, but 40% of the funds being held by LGIP which is the local investment pool that governments can participate in, which is earning about 4% return right now. They about 40% of our revenue, our balance there is the funds from public safety, which is 15 million. We have 35 million, 15 million of it is public safety. So I have to go back and recapture the interest it's earning for tax reporting to the IRS for arbitrage on, if we're earning more than we're paying in interest, we get to give that to the government. So, yeah, and it's I think it's a 3-year mark you start reporting. So what?
It hasn't been 3, quite 3.
No. We got another whole Glory can do. And I'm sure you had to go through some sand and then this and that. And it's anyway. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. Now we'll just go on the expenditures highlight. Now, keep in mind now, I'm not appropriating, when we do the supplemental budget, I'm not going to be appropriating revenues unless they're in-house or, it's self-evident, like I'm recommending, I'm going to try to knock down and not record any, make our revenues that we have to record at a minimum. But if they came in already, they get put on the supplemental to show the flow. Of year total revenues and expenditures net that you're increasing the budget by. Does that make sense?
We're looking at.
We're on, I should have said that in the last, But now we're on the expenditure highlight, which is also, you know, your supplement two that I handed out.
Personal services.
Oh, that's first, no, never mind. Yeah, well, that's the first line up there, yeah. Sorry, I don't need to say any more on that, yeah. City recorder, updo the centralizing recruitments, that was covered in the last report. You know, that, all the recruitments that are going on, it was best. The only department really had funds started, you know, appropriated was city recorder. The rest of them didn't have any, so we decided to do it on city recorder's office. That's where it was when I was here. So worked pretty good. I don't know, Kathy would agree with that.
You nodded.
Okay, and then, you know, and then, we talked about all these already, other than the canine, 115,000. Increase in cost in the police department due to the body cameras, the report management system, and the canines. And 30,000 library due to, so, again, you already touched base on pretty much the. Yeah, touch base on pretty much all the rest of these on the last reports, so if you need more detail, just ask. I'm trying to move along. Okay, now we go to special revenue fund. Next slide, please. Yeah, revenue funds. Okay, we know with tourism that revenues as well as expenditures are off from budget to significantly shift in the processing of event revenues and expenditures. Yeah, the year before, and that'll be on attached, Steve, on the original report, you go to attachment C. I believe I gave you last year numbers as well. Third page in the end. Yeah. You can see all the revenues and expenditures were pretty much run through the budget this year. You know, they were supposed to all be running through, I think, for the events, running through account event fund that the event contractor is responsible for. Well, and, you know, there were quite a few that were paid by us, but not, you know, and then we got reimbursed later. As we started to shore up the expenses and revenues, and he's going to be finishing that. Hopefully sometime in April, we'll have capacity, just finish that up and then do a full accounting of that. Right now, it looks like all the revenue expenditures are there, it just haven't been audited, so. But, so anyway, with all that change, the budget totally missed its mark. It's in the bottom line, so I'm not sure. So we're doing a budget adjustment accordingly on expenditures and revenues in the supplemental budget. Before that we'll be doing for next council meeting. Okay, so community development, that's a reflection of primarily of increase in ARPA funds and the full funding, identification of funding for the downtown Riverside projects. So we went ahead and we're budgeting for the full amount and the full amount of the expenditures, knowing that we'll probably not hit half of that, but we'll just carry over the rest of it in next year's budget, so. And then on the community enhancement side, we had Ford Foundation grant. That's new, the opioid settlements, and then grants and sponsorships through recreation. So none of that was budgeted for because Matt was closing out that fund pretty much, the community enhancement funds. And so, and I feed that because I think that's a really good way to track and account for, you know, one-time revenues and expenditures. Hopefully it'll build into a program, you know, and move over to the general fund with the funding source with it. But it's a great incubator. And you can get, you know, get grants and so on to track it, reporting and so forth. So I'm embracing it and continuing. So, see what, you know, I'll support Gloria, whatever she wants to do, I'll help her There need to be. So, and then on special revenues expenditures, again, the tourism. Way off the mark. Community development, that's again. Is the identified expenditures that go with the identified revenues that we receive, so community development is pretty well awash revenues and expenditures. So, and then community enhancement again. They're matching the revenues that we watched it. There is administration, and please still have, I haven't solved the question of their negative reserves that they have. I see a lot of entries going in and out, and it's all revolved around ARPA, so I'm not, but there's not much detail. ARPA, right, yeah. Did that in right?
Yeah, American Rescue Plan.
Yeah.
But I will have that resolved before Friday goes home. So, and then, go to the FDP funds. And they had, their activity, well, we are, on the revenue side, if you look on the supplemental report I gave you, number 1. It is, really hard to project those funds. But as you can see, they only collect 170,000 of 1.3 million budgeted in aggregate. But they received another over 100,000 in February. So, which was like, oh, wow. So how do I now track it? But, and it all has to do with future development. So I need to talk more with planning to see if I can get a good handle on projection and so on that. So what's in the queue. So, but again, those are system development charges that are charged to developers that come in and we develop basically well product, and it equates to the impacts they have on the existing infrastructure that's paid for the upgrade that are needed. Yeah. But we will have it back to the general fund. We have an admin fee that is collected, that's charged for system development. And going through what I can find of math, all I have is the estimated revenues, expenditures, and what that charge is. And I go to John, I go, I went ahead and made a journal entry for anticipated revenues at 5% as a min bucket over there in the general fund, which will have to be shored up to actuals when it's all said and done. But Matt had in 2 of SDC funds, he had about 30% being moved over. And to me, that seems excessive unless there is an explanation. I can't find the explanation anywhere of why he would be moving 30% of those funds over. Yeah, there's no, I couldn't locate a worksheet or anything. So I would recommend John that, Gloria would be great because she knows best management practices that need to be followed, because she just was sworn in as the president of our Oregon Finance Officers Association just the other day. So she's right on top of best practices. So SBCs are basically halved in the general fund. See, we have some downward general fund revenues, but we have 300,000 in personnel services savings. So, they all net, and we still have a net increase of over 500,000, which is a number I'm giving you this near the end of the presentation. But anyway. And then some of the expenditures are down in FDC streets and water, because basically, if you have your fund balance lower, you have to lower your appropriations. So that's just this 1-for-1. Any fund balances are lower for those 2 funds, we lower the appropriation level accordingly. And it's fine, it doesn't impact the fund in current operations, but it prevents it from spending more than it had. On the enterprise revenues, there. So Now you're gonna, this was one thing I pointed out last, was very important is in the budget for the current year. There were 10 million in appropriations for the DEQ loan project. And there was only 5 million appropriated for the projects that revenue would feed. All right, and it's drawers. So when we pushed out the project to the subsequent year, and this is the this will be the can't remember the name, it's reworking size 6 zone sewer pipes and so on. Well, I don't know, John.
Yeah, the sanitary sewer projects.
Yeah, so since it moved out a year, we have to move out the revenues too, so revenues drop by 10 million, but expenditures only drop by 5 million. All of a sudden, your fund balance in there drops from like 10 million to 2 million. So and it's just a budgetary number, it doesn't mean that your fund balances were just inflated when you're appropriated more than you're going to spend. Right, and especially these type of loans, if it was a debt that we get all the money up front and then we pay it out, like in public safety. Yeah, then that wouldn't happen, you just pay it and the following year you have that money in hand. But with DEQ, it's a draw. As you spend the money, you draw. And that's all feedback. In special revenues, there's streets, and very important part of the streets is the SDPs that we anticipated to be about 400,000 or about 100,000. So we had to make an adjustment with that. But we got a ODOT grant for about 400,000, a little under 400,000. We got the county to commit 200,000, and maybe it's going to be 250, but right now 200,000 for the sidewalk, Columbia Boulevard sidewalk. But the Columbia Boulevard sidewalk, one of the reasons why the county is contributing is when the bids come in, instead of being 400 and something thousand, 470,000, it is now 740,000, and that's not transposition. So the important watch here I'm going to bring up is that the timing of the grants are based on you spend it, then you file, and then you get the money. And the expenditures, so the timing of the revenues and expenditures, your fund might get close to zero. We might need an interfund loan if we don't, timely process the grant requests. All right, so I don't think that will happen, but there's a potential there because your street funds are on the tighter side. So, but the monies from motor vehicle are meeting the budget, and and they increase. I can't remember what percent they increase for next year. So there's an increase. So yes, it will delay other projects until we fully reimburse for the expenditures incurred for the Columbia's. Sorry, I didn't have it on my notes before, but it's an important thing to point out.
Yeah.
I don't want you guys to be surprised if Gloria comes here in May and says, oh, we need to do probably a short-term borrowing between to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and it isn't, as far as I understand and what I've read and so on, it's an important project for the school safety. So. Okay, so back to enterprise funds. Water and sewer sales, they are running, let's see here. So they're running, so they're running about $1 million better than we thought. And it has a lot to do with the shifting of the units, that before the units weren't being properly counted for the connection fees. So that washed all through, and We're doing better other than in water sales. I'm not sure exactly. What's happening there, other than it is increasing, but it's not, the budget was higher than. Than probably should have been. And I also have another column in here. Oh, can you, yeah. I also have another column here. I stuck in what I'm projecting for 23-24 for the budget. So it's all good. But that assumes the 7% occurring like in October. And that's along the lines of what the consultant said. But we'll know better whether it needs to be that big because we're working on a 5-year projection of the fund. You do every year for budget processing, but the only thing is I don't have the raw data to make it that accurate right now, but we're working on it. So, and that is, you need all your volumes, you need the number of billing units, you need a lot of statistics annually, and then how the increases affect at that lower level or to get more accurate reduction. And then, yeah, so you'll see a 5-year projection on all your major funds during the budget process. Clearly illustrate what your rates should be, or what, based on the report that was given last year from consultant. You mentioned 3 years at 7%.
Your proposed or your projected budget for 23-24 looks significantly higher than where we're at right now. Why do you think it's gonna increase that much?
Well, 3.6 to 3.9. It should be close to 7%. But the
Total system charges.
total system charges and
Yeah,
total, yeah, it goes from 9.9 to 10.6. So 9.9 to 10.6, so you. Oh, no, I don't have the. You use my calculator here. And 0.6 divided by 9.9 equals 7%. So it should. So I'm projecting 7%. And now beginning, keep in mind, the first 4 months of this year didn't have a proper calculation of the EDU and UUDs that go into water, sewer, and storm. And so that is delayed. So that probably is maybe even a lower estimate.
so that's part of the reason why 23-24 is a bit more top shape.
Well, on revenues, but I couldn't, in fund, you're secure in the current year, but projecting out based on the CIP, 5-year CIP, we'll know better. So, yeah, you don't want to raise rates until you have to. I definitely, and that was a little aside. I don't know, man. Okay, I'm gonna give you a little aside. When I got here, they told me next month you have to give a PowerPoint presentation on a public hearing to raise rates 32%. And I did that 2 years in a row. 5 people showed up. That was, but then when we tried to move the senior, because seniors started eating into regular revenues derived by utilities and not just the fines. You'd be not compliant, couldn't get federal funds if you did that. So when the rates were increased twice at 32%, it wasn't sustainable what senior without coming out with general funds. So we proposed to shift it over to something else, maybe use the fines and forfeitures for low income. So, but when we had that meeting, 75 to 80 people showed up. And I didn't realize, I'm so glad, I'm old now, and I'm so glad I don't dislike low income people. I don't think they did, they just wanted to continue having a subsidy on their water and sewer. And I don't blame them with 64% increase over 2 years. So, but anyway, that was kind of. Sorry, just a sideline, a little bit of history. What?
Remember it well.
Yeah, I felt like I was with a dark cape and handlebar mustache, like on that. Yeah, I won't call that a good old day, though. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so we go on to enterprise expenditures. And, of course, the water fund is mostly driven by increasing the appropriations for the water reservoir project, but then there was other projects also, and they're listed. But, next week, 2 weeks from now, I can come back with the 5-year CIP that we have crafted, and move projects out and so on. So Public Works has been very busy trying to get that right side and probably. And I was very busy to make sure that it could be accounted for by project and not everything dumping into capital outlay. And they were commingled expenditures, that we had project numbers, we could do that, but since we don't have a system that runs project numbers, we have to do it by accounts, account lines, line items. Okay, so on the little clock behind you. Uh-oh, I'm over. Well, anyway. So anyway, the expenditures, reservoir, but other projects as well, some moved in and out, and same with the sewer, but sewer, big change shift was moving it's right here, Basin 6 project. So out another year, and I understand that they're going for some CBG fund, maybe to help reduce the amount that we have to borrow from DEQ, which is great. Federal funds. Anyway, and then storms, primarily increase in a capital project that was Public Works identified. And then as you can see, there's 25,000 in each of those funds, and then 25,000 hidden streets, I think, which it takes. What happened in Public Works, I already explained this. Well, I guess we can go on to the next slide. We can talk about Public Works. Internal service funds. Internal service funds use Public Works primarily, and then Public Safety Fund. But in Public Works, when they made the budget adjustment last year of about 400,000, they failed to take into account how it's going to be funded, which is an internal service fund. So it drained their reserve down to about 100,000 or whatever. So then that's not an acceptable reserve. So in order to bring it back up, the proposed supplemental budget that will be going for you probably next meeting proposes to increase the allocation between the 4 main funds that Public Works serves, 25,000 for each. They already, since it's an internal service, they allocate. Well, I can get into a long. I don't want to get into that unless you want it. So I can, but no, okay. Okay, so anyway, so that's the main thing happening in Public Works is that, and then we're increasing the transfer to our major facilities, which was going to be transferred to the general fund, over now to Public Works because they handle the facility. That's where it sits. So, and then we have public safety, and you're looking at, we're not proposing any change, but we're not going to utilize or draw any funds. That 3 million represents another bond issue for this year that would, supplement the original bond issue in order to fund the total public safety facilities. So, but that isn't needed. So that's going to be 0, but Then you go to the next slide on the expenditures of internal service. And see here, and on public works operating, they have increased their facility maintenance by 97,000 and from basically, yeah, 97,000, basically that will be covering the facility that will be covering purchasing 2 new vehicles. They purchased one already, and they're going to be purchasing a second one before year end. And then also increase for other city facilities. And this closer reflects what was spent in other facilities in public works. And then when you go back down to major public safety, you see a $17 million expenditure. And that was the assumption that all the monies, the building we built. And, you know, so usually that you give a project that's large and it's gonna go over a couple of years, you usually try to appropriate the total revenue sources associated with that and the total expenditures. And then, you're not gonna spend it all, you just carry it forward to the next budget, the remaining amounts. So. Any questions? That's pretty well covers what's been going on and a little more picture on the revenue side. Some numbers up, but my feeling is that the general fund revenues are going to run, over 300,000 below what they have budgeted. But fortunately, you have 300,000 in savings from personal services because of vacant positions and stuff like that. That will offset that. So hopefully that will remain balanced. So the proposed budget adjustments, I'm not gonna, you have a list and so on. So just, right now in the general fund, there's 339,000 appropriations. Even in the special revenue funds, there in tourism, there's 98. There's 200,000 in additional appropriations. Community development, there's 11 million, and that's because of major projects, the riverfront, the river walk, and the Columbia View Park. And then in special revenue funds, expenditures increased 315,000, and that is primarily due to, where is it here? Project. Well, that's because we have grants that match that, and we're spending it. Ford Foundation, the recreation, those are the 2 drivers for that. And then we had to reduce some of the appropriation authority in the library because the fund balance was reserved. So I anticipate. On the street side, again, like I said, it's going to be tight for the streets, and that is, as you can see, I have grants, the grant and contributions increased 219,000, and that's primarily the STC drops, DOT increases that netted, and then the 200,000 contribution from the county. So, and then on proposed SDC funds, we're proposing, now this is basically the supplemental budget I'm going over that will be going over again in 2 weeks. A little more high level, hopefully. But if there's anything you're concerned with, everything's listed, everyone on that supplemental read that I handed out. So, I encourage you to read it and ask questions. So, shoot emails. I'm not very good at doing the voicemail on my phone, but every email I send out, I put my cell number on because it's easier to get me by cell. So then on the proposed on SDCs, we had to reduce 2 of the funds because of the fund balance. We had to reduce appropriations accordingly. And then the proposed, let's see, enterprise funds. Again, the 10 million for DEQ, and then the mixture of CIP. And if, you know, I think I've given it to you and it's kind of outlined, but a lot of those that move between has no impact on the budget totally, but we want, you know, we want a full, you know, we want full transparency of what's going on, so. So we make the a budget adjustment to reflect the appropriate budget amount into the project. So make it easy to measure year end where we're at. So. And then current service funds. We're, you know, let's see here. I don't think that really, we talked about most of this already, and it was increase in fund balances that we can transfer over to that we're closing. The public works increase in operation fund charges. And the most important part is this next slide. Yeah. Oh, okay. There you go. And you see, this is not using estimates for revenues. It's not using, you know, things that the personnel services estimate savings. You know, this is purely, this is the supplemental budget we're proposing, and this is how it impacts when we make those changes. So as you can see, and that is also supplemental for last one on your handout, so you can see it a little better. And that is again, the general fund is up after all these adjustments, budgetarily $524,000. Special revenue fund 1.5 million. Ending fund balance, June 30th fund balance we're projecting out. System development funds up 194,000. Enterprise funds down 6.3, and that's very, you know, 10 million DEQ, less 5 million in capital projects. What was your fund balance? And then internal service funds were up 85,000. So those are the impacts. Net ending fund balance. I think that's probably the most important performance indicator of what we're doing. So in the supplemental budget. Now let's talk a little bit about something. If there any questions on it? No. I know I do too. Okay, it's hard. Old dog do tricks. Okay, supplemental budget process. Okay, so budget changes after adoption. ORS 294 allows supplemental budgets in the event of these type of opportunities that come up, an occurrence or condition that is not ascertained when preparing the original budget. Unexpected funds are made available, which that's all in the economic development fund. The available, and then if your available resources are reduced, like the 2 SDC funds. Supplemental budgets cannot be utilized the unappropriated ending fund balance. If you run into a fund where you need more money that's in the fund than in the fund, then you do an inter-fund borrowing and you do a transfer in your supplemental budget, transfer from one place to another. To clear, you did that back in 18, and you borrowed 150 from water, 150 from sewer, moved it over to economic development, and that's one thing that's in the supplemental budget that I didn't bring up, that there was 2 debt services that weren't appropriated in the economic development fund.
And that tourism at one.
Yeah. So, yeah. And that's in the detail, and I don't think I really highlighted it, but it was, you know. And then the process,
Sorry.
too bad. The process and preparation is a measurement of fund appropriations. If your appropriations are less than 10%, you could just note in your announcement of public hearing that you're going to do this. You look at this resolution and then just have it. It's no public hearing at all. Yeah, but then when you go 10% or more, then a public hearing is required and I need to post it in the paper. And it's very simple. It's like 2 lines for each fund that hits that criteria. I post in the paper and then but we'll do the whole supplemental budget as the public hearing and then on the resolution that. So I'm not sure, would we have the resolution done after the public, to have council after a public hearing, the regular council meeting, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, so the resolution can be approved the same night, okay, this is my thought. Okay,
Where it falls on the agenda, right? So-
right. Okay, yeah, so, and then, is it, 10% we have to, time this supplemental budget, we plan on posting the paper this Friday, we're putting notice in to the paper on Friday, which will be published on the 8th. You have to have 5 days or more, so the hearing's the 15th, so you have 5 days, you have. And then, now we'll talk about ARPA funds, we have. Oh, Rachel's gone. Oh, she was moving. That's all right. This is just an outline of when we got revenues, how much we spent, how much was reserved into the subsequent year, so we received in 21. 1,510,858. So, and we expended 58,000 that year, so we had to carry forward a reserve of 925,000 of ARPA funds. We didn't spend in the first year go around. And then this year in August, we received the next 2 payments, because this was stretched out over 2 years. And that's how it was budgeted for, but they spent us all the money in August for 1.5 million. We have spent as of December 870,000. And we projected we'll spend this year 1.1 million. And then we will have in reserve 400,000 in the general. Well, that's all general fund. And the rest are economic development, so other than IT specialists. So we'll have 500,000 as reserved in the general fund, and then the others are reserved mostly in economic development. I think the rest are in economic development. So it looks, just a general comment. I don't know how you're gonna utilize or whether you need but if we say track on the categories I have, then you should have. In aggregate, you should have more than enough funds to continue the 1, 2, 3 positions that are funded by this out all of next budget year. So. Right, the rec admin assistants, the rec programs, there's more than that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 positions, sorry. There's a library activity staff member, and then the IT specialist down under infrastructure, so. I'm sure they're relieved, I know, if that's so directed, I don't know enough to know what you can do with it or what you can't do with it, but I thought it'd be interesting to hear there's sufficient there, so they would be remaining budget at least for another year.
It's always good to know that. Lay anyone off or get super creative.
Yeah.
Stop on, so.
Yeah. When I was here in 2010, 11, we had a budget, from 2008. But through attrition, we handled shrinking staff and making everybody go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was tough. Again, not good old days. But fortunately, it was through attrition and that. Okay, I think, let's see, and then next item is the budget. And you should have down, for it too, and So we started department discussions back in 21, February 21st. I gotta get really busy because end of this week, I have to distribute expenditures to departments and initiate development. What?
March looks very busy for you.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I might schedule a long vacation in April. Not that I didn't already twice since I've been here, but. That's why I'm part-time. So, my wife won't believe that, but. So, but the important points are 4/13 first budget committee meeting and May 4th, the second one. And hopefully they'll approve it at that time. And then we can go ahead and get the notice in the paper the following Friday. You know, it has to be on the LB1. So, and then on May 17th, we posted in the paper for the actual adoption, notice of adopting it. Yeah. Well, yeah, it seems pretty simple, but there's a lot going on in this number, so. And then like any other year, you know, you're always cautious, you know, where our reserves were, you know, how we doing, what's projected. And when you project things out, they always look worse at first until you refine the numbers, so. So hopefully we'll have fully refined them before we share them with you all in the budget. But it doesn't give a lot of time.
So this is one of, while we're here on the slide, and I was gonna talk about it later, but now seems more appropriate, is city council is involved in two budget processes. One of them is for the city budget, the other one's for the Urban Renewal Agency acting as a agency board. And those dates are not plugged in there yet. We went to a biannual process last time around, so we still need urban renewal. And so we're gonna screw up. So let's look at it 2 years from now. We
No, you don't,
get
yeah,
up along the way. And we'll
Right.
that'll overlay that calendar in some.
Yeah.
It might be.
yeah, I started reading about it, but I didn't get a lot, and then I found the gold document on it, but I haven't gotten a chance to read it. I'm sure we're behind the process of that.
And the urban renewals, as we're not spending a lot of urban renewal funds, it's just in an accumulating phase, and we're reserving all that money to service the debt. It's gonna come on these loans up here, so there's much less moving parts.
Yeah. So, and yeah, so. Yeah, that's it. There's a lot to do. Next slide. There we go. Yeah. Oh, well, it used to be health, family, work. Now it's just work.
Well, I have two questions for you.
Yes, please.
First one, what are your concerns or areas of focus? And second one, how can we support you?
Oh, wow. This is a job interview. I told him I don't want to. You already hired someone. Yes, we did.
Well, you were working hard and there was a lot of.
Okay.
needs.
Right, I can bring forward a list, but you know, there's not,
You did some like the sidewalks and you kind of.
yeah, the street thing would be, right, but I also like the, you know, there's not a lot of documentation of a lot of the, and so at least I couldn't find any on like the SDC admin fee, but then you have the public works, internal working and how that allocates, but that's pretty straightforward. It's a zero sum there, so that's a no-brainer, really. It's just a matter of the documentation of time studies that you will support anything that you have to apply against federal grants. You know, so which we don't basically recover salaries on federal grants. They go all to the pavement, right, John? As far as I know, they do. So we don't ever really have to worry too much about that. And then the general fund, the allocation of the general services out to the department. So those aren't, you know, documented as far as I can, well, they're documented in, they have a study, you know, on the personal services modeling has a study there, and they allocate people out and so on, so, yeah, I just think it needs some more support down there, so, let's see, and then, yeah, no, there's just, I have a list I started writing, but it's escaping me now, a senior moment.
Well, feel free to send it to me if you'd like in an email.
Sure.
He'll take peanut,
Oh, and of course, I wanna,
he'll take peanut M&Ms.
and of course, I wanna, I wanna successfully go through tourism and successfully set up a simplified budget process that is, okay, this is all, I already kind of outlined it with John a little bit, Tina, and that is, here's the tourism money, TOT. Here's Tina's contract amount. Here is the gate revenues from the events. And here is the payment reimbursement for the
Sonic, yeah.
yeah, the Sonic building. And that's all you see. Boom, this had a lot of ins and outs and it just kind of mushrooms some of the numbers, because you're building up back and forth and also it wasn't that clear directed to staff how that stuff, well, I guess it was directed, I'm sure, but it wasn't, it's what they call a muscle memory, like I have my orthopedic doctor, he moved to Kaiser, I still go, half the time, halfway there, and I go, oh, shoot, I gotta go this way, and then I'm like 15 minutes off.
Right, my neighborhood house all the time, like, wait a second, I don't live here.
Right, so the same thing like with the capital improvements, we changed all the numbers and so on. So, for each quarter, I'll be sending out something to all the staff saying, here's what's been charged, here's some stuff over here, should that really be over here? Until they get, the muscle memory, oh, yeah. So I just did that over the weekend, I sent them an email. So,
No, I'm supporting you in that, good,
yep,
okay.
all right, thank you. Wow.
So we have John Walsh, we're gonna talk about the gateway feature for public works.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Jacob.
People in the audience are interested in that. Yeah, thank you. I have prepared a multi-hour theory on lecture on concentric planning theory, which I will deliver in a monotone voice. No, this is actually kind of fun. So we are talking about renaming a street. This is not something that comes up very often. The last time it came up was 2009. And in this case, it is a street that is right by the building known as the Bloated Toad from the Twilight series. And Kathy, if you go to the last page of my memo, there's an aerial photo illustration which provides probably a little bit better context. So this is a mid-block street. There's some right of way there, but we're gonna reconnect it. It was actually connected about 100 years ago. And if you recall in your presentations about some of the infrastructure projects going on down here from others, it was noted as A Street. Looking back in time, it looks like it was called Mill Street. We already have a Mill Street in town that is off North Nonia Road. And so we think about street names, we want to make sure each street has a unique name for emergency response purposes. And so we got to think of a name. And Oregon Revised Statute sets out a process for that, where it starts with the recommendation from the Planning Commission and the public hearing before you. So the formal process has to start. This is kind of a preliminary process just to inform you and provide some initial feedback. Now, the street name can be anything. In the memo, I just kind of had some funny stuff. The one thing that we're recommending as staff, though, is that it be way instead of street, avenue, boulevard, etc., just based on normal street conventions. And there's a good example not far away, John Gum Way is one of these little mid-block streets. Similar like this, and the last word is way. We don't have any rules that says that, but it's this typical street naming convention, and so that's what we recommend. So then the question then is, what word do you pick? I'll talk about what happened in 2009, just to give you a little bit of context. So there was a street behind the bowling alley. There's a food cart pod there now. And ODOT transferred that to the city in 2009. I think they may have had it for the highway widening in the 90s. I'm not sure. But they transferred that to us. It was previously known as Kavanaugh Street. There's already a Kavanaugh Avenue. Again, unique names for emergency response. And so the council was tasked with, well, what do you name this? They ended up naming it Bowling Alley. And if I had more experience, if I was more involved in, I would probably recommended something other than alley, but you know, that's all in the past now. So then what do you call it? What do you use? Important person, some historical context. Our associate planner and project manager, Jenny Dimshow, reached out to the Museum Association to kind of help us brainstorm. And Council President, if you will, Les Waters with the association is here to talk about it. At least to get some ideas. That way, when we start the process of the planning commission, we have something to grab on rather than just willy-nilly. I will just mention some of my comical examples in my memo.
I had some great ideas too.
One is any way. Another one is get out of my way. But of course, those are ridiculous. So if you will, if you'll permit Mr. Waters to.
No, this is great.
Oh, this is a solo act.
Yeah.
Well, I want to represent the museum. I'm Les Waters, as I was introduced, and we would really like you to consider it a historic name. And so I put together a little look at some of the history in this area. Is it possible to make that any bigger? So these are fire maps.
All right, Kathy's the Mill Street. There you go.
So these are fire maps that show from this is 1919, the area. They're color coded based on what the fire rating was for the buildings at the time. And they have a lot of detail about what was going on in the community, including businesses and so forth. We don't have to worry about that enough. And so on the other side, if you get the sense of how far you are away from this, maybe everybody knows where Mill Street is, but it's nearby. So I've circled it with that oval and all of these. And so in that block, so the house right below Mill on the left there, the house that has a little white around it is still standing. Many of the other structures are gone. And that's the reference to the Twilight. That was a restaurant in the movie. We'll go to the next one, please.
Sorry.
So this one, if we can back out just a little bit.
Oh, I.
Right, somewhere along in there. So I don't know why it's got that shadow on there, but anyway, that's basically the 2023 version.
Kathy hit Command D, that usually deselects it. Command.
Or
Control.
I'm so, yeah, sorry, I use Mac.
Oh, gosh.
No, it's a Windows computer. There we go.
All right, thanks. So anyway, you can see there's a lot of billiards and cigar stores and everything. And the picture that's inset there, it's not exactly the same year, but that's facing Strand Street. So those are the facades of some of those buildings that are listed there on that fire
Go down.
Next one then. So this is 1911. I just wanted to point out that Mill Street hasn't actually always been where it's proposed to be, I guess. Because if you see on the corner, it's farther over, which is in the area, I think that will be Mill Street. And that was a movie theater, silent films probably. It also had vaudeville troupes that performed there. So I guess my point is just that over time, it's had a lot of different activities and a lot of different venues. You can see the scope of the mill at this time, how big it was. So a lot going on. Next one, please. So this is, I put in a few pictures here. You can't see all of that one in this case, but yeah, just to get a sense of what it did look like when it was very active down there. And so you can see where Mill Street is, and then right next to it was the McCormick offices. That's where they had for their lumber mills, the shipyards and so forth. That was their offices. And then there's the Kaliba Hotel, which was across the street from that. Also has had quite a bit of history in the community. I won't describe, but you can tell what era this is. If you're at all familiar with St. Helens history, you kind of look out into the river and see what the progress is on Sand Island. And if you can see, Sand Island is just starting to be developed there. So we're talking about the 20s. Okay, we'll go to the next one, please. Again, these are just some aerials kind of showing the, where Mill Street was and what was going on around it at different times. Again, this is about 1961, I think. You can see the veneer mill in the foreground there. And again, you can see the size and the scale of the mill operation. And so again, a lot of history for the people that work downtown, this government center, all these things that have gone on for decades. Again, another picture showing you here, you can see Sand Island, but you can see the house there as well, which survived the fire. So this is a shot of the McCormick office building that I mentioned that was right next to it. This was, I think, shortly after it was constructed. This is a keel for a ship that was built at the shipyards. This is the keel being laid for a wooden ship. This is Nellie McCormick, so she was the wife. And very active in the business. And this picture, I believe, was in what we call the broom handle factory. It wasn't there, but anyway, that's Nellie McCormick. This is the Kaliba Hotel that I mentioned earlier. There's some clippings there about who had owned it and what its functions were. It was basically a working man's hotel, primarily, as a lot of them were down there. This is the Isbister, if I'm saying that right, home, and that is, and she went by Mother I believe. So people who struggle pronouncing her name like I did, but she and her husband ran the Orcadia Hotel for decades in St. Helens. They were well known in the community, and she was actually a historian who had contributed a lot to the background for the history and research on the historic district. So with that sort of brief thing, I thought I would just highlight some historic name considerations that just kind of came up. So if you wanted to focus on Indigenous people or pioneer women, have lots of representative candidates for that. Shipbuilding references or names of vessels. So keel being the keel that I showed in the picture, Way, Wapama Way, Salilo Way, Thistle Way. Those are all names of ships that were built here in St. Helens. And then the businesses, like I mentioned, people associated with businesses in the area. McCormick Way, we saw Nellie McCormick, Kaliba, the hotel, the Isbister Way from the hotel family. George Wade, that would be Amy George or the George family that ran the St. Helens Hotel. And you'll notice that one is highlighted. That's my favorite. That doesn't, since I have this opportunity, I thought I would show you. So the next slide is kind of wide. So the Wapama was a famous ship built here in St. Helens because it went on to be in a museum. In the lower right is it's when it was about to be launched. The upper right is what the main room, the dining hall aboard ship was. This carried passengers as well as lumber from St. Helens to San Francisco. It later became a part of the National Park Service and was on exhibit in San Francisco for years, and that's where that part comes from. So I think it would be a good candidate, if any historic candidate would be we'd be happy to provide any information for that, including at some point if you wanted to have some historic information available on the way or in the area. That's something we really would like to contribute. Any questions?
Two, or no, one, actually, so I noticed the
Question.
Chief Kite Snow, is that also the one who's also known like casino or yeah, okay, so and so your spelling represents more.
There are about 4 spellings and probably more that have been used and misused.
Right.
That's his portrait, one of the few Indian chiefs who has a portrait.
I've seen that.
We would, originally there was a street in St. Helens named for him, and then when they did the renaming of the streets and changed them to the numbers, Second Street was Casnov, Casenov, I think, I can't remember, Casneu. It's spelled different ways. And so he was recognized here, and this was part of his tribal area.
Right.
We would like to see something more major named for him. I'll have something in mind, for sure, that we would hope to be able to approach you about. But I think he's a good candidate for a number of reasons.
Okay, no, I thought, because I know many like Sacagawea and Sakakawea, the name, and I'm curious, and why did you choose this one based on that being most authentic or?
I don't know, can you say Scappoose in this room and not create a problem? So, as part of the museum, we've been working on a project on the Crown Seat Trail. And so there is a kiosk about Scappoose, an early history of Scappoose, and it's phonetically spelled out, and under there is a section on him. So I did some research and I went with the most recognized spelling by the Oregon Encyclopedia and other sources. That does not mean it's accurate, but everyone knows for sure, but that's why I chose that.
And it's not a question, it's a shame about the Wapama, what eventually happened to it.
Yes, it is.
It fell into disrepair, it wasn't proper and dismantled.
The National Park Service
But they
got
still have-
over and over, but they didn't
Was one of the
apply it, so.
crown jewels of the shipbuilding here, so, oh, thank you. Yeah.
Sure. And I'll just point out that drawing down below is a blueprint from another schooner that was built, when you looked at before was a steamboat, but that steamship, so that is a Greek schooner that was built here too. That particular one is the Wells.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thinking about the patterning of St. Helens, Cowlitz. Tualatin, kind of, it's in between Cowlitz and Tualatin too. That was same or different, I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry, I turned away.
Maybe it's some, whether it fall into line between something between Cowlitz and Tualatin, or if it was. Or not, or.
Yeah.
He's referencing other streets
Point of reference.
around it, so he's thinking about those names. The other streets around.
Whether Wapama would fit into that or not.
Neighboring streets, right? It's not like the President's District or the Tree District or the.
Well, I'll leave that to you. Your judgment.
Very helpful.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Les. So we appreciate the partnership with the Museum Association. This gives us a lot of stuff to chew on. We'll see how it comes out with the planning commission. Our engineering team recommended potentially cinematic history like Pumpkin Way or something like that. So we wanted to inform you, give you the opportunity for at least initial feedback as we start this process. And be prepared to rock and roll. I'll just say how this started was the contractor, they're gonna build that street section, which is gonna include street signs. Yeah. And so that's what prompted the, oh yeah, we gotta start this process so we know what to put on the street sign.
Well, I really like McCormick. I think it'd be a nice name, McCormick Way. Anyone else have any comments or?
The park, man, on the way, that makes sense.
Get to. McCormick Street.
Sure sounds familiar. We may,
Have a street name.
yeah, that would be an Achilles heel to any name if there's something similar. From an emergency response standpoint.
I like the idea of something recognizing the indigenous population that existed here, although I hear what Les is saying about something on a different scale, a bigger scale to recognize the key, but there are some other, I like the Wapato, Wapato Way. We're part of the Wapato Valley here, and actually just off of further down, I mean, we got Wapato everywhere, but I think that's another way of maybe a small way to recognize the indigenous population here. So Wapato was an essential part of their food system. So I like that, although.
Now, just for your own thought, future opportunities, this doesn't come up often at all. Usually in a subdivision, we deal with those all the time and it's the developer choosing. Now, with this, will the developer choose, or will you want to reserve those name ideas for yourself? That's one of those kind of side discussions. We can get that at a later date, this is what to focus on. But, there may be other opportunities for street naming down here or elsewhere.
So what happens next is this will go to the planning commission and they'll come up with a name and then it'll come back to us.
Yeah, so we give it to the planning commission for recommendation, and then we schedule a public hearing with the council. That way we have a formal way of receiving public input, and we'll see how it all shapes up.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Now we'll jump to Administrator John Wong. Who's with you though?
All right, I was gonna invite Jenny to come out and help talk about this, but.
Yeah.
So at our last meeting, we introduced the Gateway Future proposal. We doesn't have all the scoring and rubric background that we normally put together with RFP and have committees and evaluations and things like that. What I'm talking about is the intersection of First and St. Louis Street. All right, see you later. And we solicited 2 local proposals from 2 well-qualified firms, and we got proposals, and we, when I read the proposals, they each have compelling thoughts about their work, about local, their service, kinds of things. They've done a lot of new things, and we wanted to check in with you to see if you had opinions or feelings or.
Yeah, we'd like to come back with the personal services agreement, working with one of them, but we're kind of at a crossroads, right? We've got 2 proposals. And Kathy, could you pull up one of them?
Which one?
Let's see which one's first. Yeah, so go to like the 3rd page of this one. It just shows where we're at. Perfect. Yeah, so just so everyone's aware, that's the area we're talking about. So CrossFit is kind of where her cursor is.
Well, and why it's timely is that we're working on this intersection, the foundation for this. It's important to get right to match the structure. We would have included it into the engineering project, but we didn't want to have civil engineers designing it. Gateway, so.
Or at least the civil engineers designing the streets project. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully you've read through the two proposals. The city will guide how this design process goes in both either way. I think we would convene a group of stakeholders. The stakeholders would include the Main Street Alliance Design Committee, Amara. We would want Main Street involved. Clearly, they involve themselves in placemaking. We would want the Museum Association, in my opinion, involved for historic context. I think that group would kind of go through the whole process and report back to their corresponding groups that they're representing. This project would have to go before the commission for compliance with the Riverfront District architectural guidelines. So there's a permitting process that this has to go through as well. I think Econ has a background working on gateway features that they highlighted in their proposal. Lower Columbia has been a staple in the community for architectural and design services. I think both proposals have their merits. So we both just really want some feedback from you all on what to come back with. Okay.
Well, what do you think? We can each have a moment to say something. Counselor Sundin?
Well, I just, you could defer to another group if you wanted to. If you weren't comfortable doing that, we can put together a selection committee and come back to you with a recommendation if you want that. More than just Jenny and I looking at it. Doing that, but it's just an alternative.
I think these are two great candidates. I don't know if we need to kick the can down the road any further. I think we can make a good decision today about it. Do you guys agree?
I don't know. I've looked at it and I guess I wanted to hear more about just what next steps were and so I
just wanted clarification. Lower Columbia is local. Is the other company local as
Yes,
well?
they both.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, they're at 101 St. Helens Street, Econ is, so just across from Gnome Grown. Yeah, they're literally down.
Oh, there, yes.
Yeah. Usually agree with your work. Yes.
Yeah, yep, that's the project, yeah. It's kind of subtle.
One of the things that I noticed when I was looking at them is, I remembered that Lower Columbia, just came in here recently with, working on the, Veterans Memorial. And that was something that really stood out to me, that kind of community involvement and willingness to kind of step up to help out with those things. So in my idea, I would like to see us move forward with Lower Columbia. But, I'm open. They both are really great candidates and have really great work and doing a lot of things in the community. So if anyone else has any.
I feel good about both of them. I guess my biggest question you've already kind of answered is what the process would look like. Who designs this thing? Do we have input in that? Or is it something that they design and bring to us? So
Yeah,
so I'm glad you mentioned that.
and just to add more clarity to, there would be kind of the 30% design, which is just your concept, a 60% design, and then a 90% design. So each step of the way, you're providing that stakeholder group would provide feedback. And I think we would have 2 cost estimates built in. So we'd have an early cost estimate and then a later one, just to make sure we're on track with budget. And then as far as timing goes, ideally this is installed at the same time that this street intersection is being under construction, so we don't impact surrounding businesses at the same time. So there is a time sensitivity to this.
What is the timeline on that?
Now, well, I mean, we're under contract to do the intersection, so we're sort of at the mercy of that construction timeline, but they're moving forward, right? So they have
Ballpark.
I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not managing it. Yeah.
Can we kind of say like that whole project was towards the end of 2024, kind of, sort of, but I
Yeah,
know
their
it's all
contract is, I think, 2 years.
Yeah.
And it started in November, so you're looking at somewhere between then. I just don't know if they're gonna start at that end or they're gonna start on Strand. I don't have a good sense of that piece, so. Sometime in the next 2 years.
So, I'm sorry, Grant, did you have more? Did you want to share?
Just another thing I was thinking, we've mentioned another gateway up in the Holton district. Is that something that would be going on simultaneously, or is that further down the road?
Yeah, I wish, I think, we're incorporating this into the same funding for like the downtown improvement project, so this is part of our loan package. With that project, there's no funding source currently. It's identified in the urban renewal agency as a project, but right now we're, as John mentioned, we're kind of accumulating urban renewal funds to pay back the loan, which is funding all of this work.
So basically, because we have the ground getting opened up, we gotta take advantage and put it in now, since it would be something we would wanna do in the future. With hopes that the one at the top of town will look similar to the one we're putting in now, which is why we want other people at the table who are gonna be involved in the.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Thematically, we want some sort of consistency with our signage, and I think that stakeholder group would get a copy of what's already been done at that area for design. That design is only at like a 30% level, so it's not full construction documents, but I think it should be used to help just make sure we're consistent. Yeah.
One thing this project will also do is kind of set the tone for the next kind of public art engagement features. With not, maybe not full road crossings or spires, as we, come down to Cowlitz here and turn that intersection into a nice intersection and come down to the.
Yeah, I keep thinking about it. It's,
Yeah.
but there's a roundabout feature that has opportunity for more or just artwork in general. There's kind of two landscape planters down here. You can see this is going to be a really visual corridor where you're looking down and seeing the river for the first time. And so, preserving these areas for artwork and also in the center of that roundabout.
And the feature, the street.
Yeah, there's a traffic.
Street,
Yeah.
Trying to say that street.
Yeah. And that's already designed, but at least it's another one of those sort of archway type features.
It's another question I have is what is the purpose or what is the point we're trying to convey here? Because it seems like if you're gonna do welcome to St. Helens or something, you've already been in St. Helens for a long
Right.
time before you get to the downtown area. So are we anticipating this will say welcome to the historic district or welcome to the riverfront district, or what are we thinking this, what's it gonna do?
It's a really good question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Has a lot of potential.
I think you're right. I don't think this would say welcome to St. Helens. I don't think that's the appropriate spot at all. But I do think this is the entrance to downtown, and whether that's riverfront district, historic district, I think that could come out of that stakeholder group. Yeah. That's an important piece to solve. But we know it's an entrance. This is clearly like,
Principal rival.
yeah.
You're
exactly.
entering downtown, yeah.
And it will extend, right? Like we know it's gonna extend through the waterfront property too, so it truly is the start of first business corridor.
And so the fees they propose is for their involvement for the entire length of the project through the 90% or completion, or
Actually through construction, so there will be some back and forth through construction and fabrication, and they'll be around to answer questions
Okay.
about their design.
but.
But they are apples to apples.
This is, okay.
Yeah,
So
It's the same scope of services.
I like that they're both using Pacific stainless too.
Yeah, and that was partially because I kind of teed it up, like I want a local fabricator for something that is a local identifier. So I think that was sort of something we built in. And as far as the cost, I mean, they're comparable. I wouldn't make any decision on something so important like this just based on design costs.
I think they're both good, I guess, in some ways, I like to, we turn it over, I said, with the folks who are gonna actually be doing the day-to-day work.
Oh, this like the stakeholder group. The stakeholder.
Well, I mean, well, start to decide this group, I don't know if that's gonna be the internal staff decision, group, and then coming back with recommendation or stakeholder group. But I guess I'm thinking primarily, well, I mean, it could be broader than that. I'm thinking in the end, we want the stakeholder group, of course, to be involved in whole design and all that, but then I'm thinking, where does the rubber hit the road? That's staff, right, working intimately with these folks. And I believe we have good relationships with both organizations. That's why it makes it difficult to choose, but there might be things staff, unless you really want us to make the decision.
I think
I know you do.
we should make the decision.
I mean, we
I know
selected
it's
them
difficult,
directly
but-
because we knew both would provide a good scope of service. Like, we're not gonna select a firm that we dislike working with, so I feel like conflicted.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
like I say, we've worked with both before, they both do a great job. Got a project going on with Lower Columbia right now that's progressing. I think Econ is right here in the downtown area, definitely, they're gonna wanna do their best work because they're just right around the corner there, so. I feel good about both options.
right.
Mark, what say you?
I know, it's like flip it.
Yeah, I mean, really, we don't really have anything to lose in this one. Right, I mean, comparable bids, they're both qualified. It's kind of a tough poll.
Well, I mean, I guess.
The mayor.
I'm the mayor, I can make the decision. I think I would like to, do we need to make a motion?
Well,
Do we need to vote on it? Is it just the mayor who?
Well, I think, well, John, I don't, if you have anything more here,
Yeah.
we just need guidance for what to come back with.
Consensus is fine. There's project budget for it. We'll move forward. Scope at some point here. At least a sense of timeliness too, but we want to get it right for sure. I don't know if there's a wrong place.
so I'm actually supposing, I know Lower Columbia is actively already involved in a number of projects, and I think there's some value in spreading the wealth and for that, since I would lean towards Econ.
Okay, so we've got Jessica for LCD. It is just a good tie.
So I'm kind of, just from the proposal last time with their amount, Econ.
Yeah.
Econ is, I never,
Econ.
it is Econ, not Econ.
Anyway, but they had a lot of features. I don't know if it's ones they had all been involved with, but it all done the same kind of scope of work, right? Same kind of archway, and they, I mean, kind of Patrick on that.
Right.
I was leaning towards Lower Columbia.
Oh my gosh, that's it.
Honestly, though, I feel good about both.
Wow.
Do we call Rick?
No, I need to make a decision, and if I have to be the tiebreaker, I'll go with Lower Columbia.
All right, done, decision made.
All right.
I'm not to make a motion, you make a motion.
We don't need to, it's just consensus,
Yeah.
so we just all have to come to an
You
agreement.
need to practice.
We'll bring you up.
Yes,
Okay.
okay, at the next meeting on the 15th, I'll have a personal services agreement prepared with Lower Columbia scope. Good with that?
It's good that it was a hard decision to make. We are both very honorable companies, so.
I agree.
Sounds like we'll have more of these so we can spread the level a bit.
I agree, yeah, no, and artistic ones as well. Thank you.
Stick around for the next.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you wanna do that one first?
I did,
I'll
move it
go
up.
around.
When I get covered, hold on for a minute.
All right. We're going to John's report, last but not least.
So. Somewhat related to, it's the gateway, not gateway, the Columbia View Park improvements, the stage. Amphitheater. Layout, we've, done a lot of work with this, right, like 90%, and there's been, when we began the project, they started with. all these iterations of it, should the stage be moved more right, it should be left, should it be center, should it be forward, should it be back? You know, what should it look like? What, you know, what are the factors? Is it the winds? Is it the sun? Is it, you know, all these things, and the design that came back reflected all of the work we've done. And that is that the stage is a little to the left, it's a little askew of the amphitheater, the existing amphitheater. But the new improvements in the plans have a couple more steps down that kind of centered out. The park's not what it was before because all the playground equipment's going away and it's going all the way over to Cowlitz, so it's a little different shape. And there's been some people coming on the planning, at the Parks Commission and some planning commission and others in the community kind of pretty vocal about, are you getting this right? And we want to make sure that we're getting it right. And so, and I didn't bring multiple copies, but so there's two factors. There's this one here, which I get, you've all seen it many times. There, it's not the most recent coloring rendition. Another factor is should the back of this door, the clothes would be just a solid color or have a pattern on it. And then how it orients the park. You've seen this too. I can distribute these electronically if you want. But the question is, what I think it's going to answer it best is to do a rendering that has a point where you can go out and have this auto rendering of state where the thing is, we're going to take a picture of it. We're going to come in and 3D model what it's going to look like when you're in space. And so you can kind of look right, look left, and how it feels. Does it feel a little left, feel a little right?
So. The scope that John is talking about. You can see. Thanks, Patrick. We'll have kind of someone standing here looking down.
Stairs going down right there.
And so what will the stage look like if you're sitting right here? That's kind of the answer we want. And you may be able to get to see like the berm and the Riverwalk railing in the background as well. But in order to do that, they have to come out again, take site photos, stake out the corners of the stage. And the, you know, maybe the dance floor is also within that rendering too, but is what we have scoped.
I think it's important. There's work at the cost of this is incidental to the value. It's a little bit of delay, but we have enough. There's enough contingency in the schedule to be able to pause and do this. But I think just what I want to show you that we're really sincere about trying to get this right.
Yeah,
Right, and you know, not have any regrets here, and just have a real objective look at it.
Yeah, I like that, Jenny. You remember me and you sitting in that park very
Yeah.
early on when I first got on city council, just kind of daydreaming about what the stage and stuff will look like.
Yeah,
And I think it's extremely important that we get it right.
yeah,
So if not, we'll never live it down.
yeah. It's the orientation and the setback too, right? Because it's getting pushed back.
Yeah.
Significantly. And this is an older, so it's actually been tweaked a little bit to be a little further. This was too tight along the Riverwalk back here. So from this, which was 30%. To 60 to 90, it kept kind of getting shifted forward and rotated.
Right.
So this is an even earlier rendition, but yeah, I think just making sure that moving into construction, we have it even tweaked ever so slightly.
That's Audrey Webster is in my head about being on planning commission, and her mantra was we only have one chance to get this right. So yes.
And I'll have you. So when we started this project, I gravitated toward familiar, which is where the gazebo was, and we're gonna just move it.
Yeah.
And it ended up over a little bit, and I've gotten used to that. I think it looks nice. I think it works, especially because the stage is gonna be open 99% of the time. The doors is gonna be kind of see through.
Yeah.
But I still think it's important to get it right.
Mhm.
Not have to sit there, have a sit crooked looking at a performance.
Right. Yeah. Or just one that you can't quite hear all the way because it's set too far back or something like that. The other thing too, that this this rendering, similar to the groundbreaking streets project, you know, we have poster boards up during those events. And while the park's under construction, we can use poster boards that show the stage render, like what's going on here? Why is it under construction?
Soon, right?
This will come soon. So I think they can be used as marketing through the construction. Which could take a year. And so I think they'll be repurposed. It's not just to make sure we have the design right.
Yeah.
And maybe even like attract development to the
Yeah.
waterfront site, like, hey, this is what's getting built to the north of this site. So these renderings will have a use beyond just this. Did you want to talk about the actual scope, John? The cost? Have they all seen it?
They have.
Oh, okay.
We just put it in the next, I mean, it's incidental to the.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Okay.
Have you guys heard any feedback about the playground being moved?
Not so much. The Parks Commission had really good feedback on that when we brought it to them the first time, and there were things like making sure there was visibility for parents to be able to see.
That's what I was thinking. We're used to the playground being right there next to everything, so you can kind of stand and see your children playing.
Yeah, I think with the addition of the pavilion, there's gonna be kind of this new central spot where parents can like watch the shows and watch the kids on the playground.
Or sit on the berm side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's just gonna be a lot more opportunities to kind of spread away from the events if that's not why you're there. Yeah, that's a good question though.
Something that I think
So that-
about, yeah.
I'd say with somebody that goes down there with kids, it's nice to be able to look over and see your kids, but it can also be very distracting when there's 100 kids there going crazy.
Yeah, if that's not why you're there, yeah.
Well, that's how a lot of families are able to engage in things like 13 nights where they have their children with them, is being able to have the playground right next to where, you know, they're enjoying entertainment and community. So it's important that they work together.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I think if anything, we're expanding the area too, so it'll be less like shoulder to shoulder on the playground equipment, they'll be more spread out. Which I think will help.
All right, moving on.
John.
Thank you, Vinny.
They're fortunate to have awesome staff.
Mhm.
So we've got a pretty good to go through with the budget, and some of our, getting the budget right, but, we're heading right into the budget season here, and not only the city budget, but your renewal budget, which is usually pretty quick. The first meeting's coming up on April 13th, is scheduled our budget committee meeting, so that's good to know. We have the auditors are here. And every city that I know has been late in their audit process. I remember even getting an auditor, or should have to go back and renegotiate the contract we had. But they're here, they're doing their work. It should be wrapped up in about 2 weeks. John Ellis is supporting them while they're here, and nothing too alarming yet. Speed fairly in order. Our finance director is on board. She's, looking to move here, relocate, and anybody who has a place to live, she or buy or rent, she's like a lead if she can get it. So very excited to come. So a new program that we're looking to kick off here is an internal project here is a Take Your Child to Work Day. We have that every year. It happens nationally, but we've never really done much with it. Some parents will bring their kid for a little bit, but Lisa and others and Crystal have kind of put together a full program that could make that happen. Basically, there's a whole waiver process and a lot of details go into it, but they're looking to do that on April 27th, and if the council's not unsupportive of it, I'll send out an email later today, kind of making the invitation, and it'd be open to counselors, and they can submit their parents' work, and they have someone else that can take them to see what they do. There's some positions you can't be riding in the police car or ride a dump truck or anything like that, but there'll be tours of the different facilities, so it should be an interesting day. Do a lunch with the mayor, whole day of things. It should be good activity. Okay, we'll get that going. Central waterfront. The purpose of having these separate central waterfront open houses is to go over, see how the wastewater lagoon works. And just really look out upon it and just imagine the possibilities of what redevelopment can look like. I mean, to see that it's the people we've ones we've had already, people come and say, it doesn't look that dirty, why it's so clean? It does looks like a lake. And, so we're doing one of those tomorrow from 4 to 6, another one on April, the 6th, so. And be a series of those, so it'll be open up, we'll have some renderings of the redevelopment that's done into ball fields and some other things out there for people to look at.
We're gonna put those out there, huh?
Mm-hmm, yeah,
Alright,
excellent.
that'll get people excited, I think.
Or it could be anything, well, you know.
No ball field.
No, ball-
Ball fields are good.
I'm just kidding.
So on March 8th, we're having a joint meeting between the city council and planning commission. And that, the topic for that is going to be the HB 3115, that they're sleep and lie. Called the camping ordinance and houselessness ordinance. We're gonna have Aaron Heisel, which is represented by CIS, which was the one that was representing in the Grants Pass cases. Gonna come spend all the time he needs with us to try to get that right and have that discussion.
Good.
Council.
Good guy.
Yeah, heading up to him. Yeah, been part of those discussions and thorough as they've been. Tina and I have been looking to try to, parking, tourism, parking is gonna be a big issue. Trying to figure it out, the space needs to do programs and activities when people come. We're looking to come up with a space to have a portable building of some type that we put up, take down kind of thing, probably a tent of some type. And it might be up at the behind the rec center just during that month to serve as an outpost for parking and shuttling. It'll take all of that, probably take some of the parking at the mill, maybe even some other parking down there to run shuttles down here and trying to be real mindful of that and just the negative impacts to those people that are not going to oblige those parking areas and come down here and jam up the streets and what our strategy is for that. Because there's a pay model, there's, you're gonna have a lot of angry neighbors that are blocking their driveways and things that we had in the past. And having this lot's been a real asset to
Give everyone cones. Mark your cones.
that's, when I worked in Southern Oregon, we had the county fair in town, in the city, and we actually rented them for, it was $30, and you came in and you got 2 sawhorses with a piece of ribbon between them, and you put them where you wanted to park your car, and and when you got at the end of the fair, you brought it back, and then they got most of your money back. That went to donate to something else, but things like that, we want to, we don't want angry neighbors.
Yeah. For businesses that can't get their people in to shop, they're just.
Our residents that live down here that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's fill their home and community. We want to welcome visitors, but not,
And they're coming whether we plan for it or not.
Yeah.
The public facility update, Answer Cindy and I have been doing weekly calls. Thank you for participating in that. It's a pretty good commitment. I think we're on a really good track. The building basically cut in half in size. I don't think it's actually improved in function in some ways as a public safety facility, not just as a when you take the courtroom out and the operation build those other functions, it still is a really nice looking building and it's got good shape and access. But I don't know if you have any feedback.
Saw the first rendering last week and just really pleased with it. Yeah, it looks nice and functional. Chief Greenway seems pleased with it, so I think it's.
And the officers seem very supportive of it, so he's shared that.
And
It's half the cost. So.
And from what I read, whatever, it looks like we're not having to worry about the floodplain issue on the reduced, as much on the reduced footprint and locating it.
Well, we won't have to worry about the floodplain as much because we're going to fill to the small portion that's between the 100 and the 500.
Okay.
Have that presence by the road, but what is impacting positively is the buffers to other wetlands kind of around it. So we're getting further away from the wetlands.
Okay.
Much,
And
we're really striving to get that building up front, have presence, be right there at the intersection and not be tucked way
right.
back in. Rachel Berry was down in Salem yesterday, meeting with Senator Weber. I don't know if she talked to you about that at the beginning of the meeting before we get started, but pitching our city's interest in infrastructure, in early learning, which helps pay for recreation programs, and also in the workforce space. We're really trying to the maker space, we were really looking for ways to make that happen, and there's workforce funding that might be available. Senator Weber is really excited about our infrastructure project. She's intending to champion that, and that would go a really long ways towards replacing the reservoir up on the Pittsburgh Road there. They're replaced rather than reline.
Yeah. Go in.
Yeah. Kathy, did you have a chambers request? You sent it to me, but the Chamber of Commerce was asking a request for their banquet.
Yeah, we need a table, right?
I didn't know if you had that to put up for, I have it right here in front of me. I only made one copy though. This is something the council has done in the past as far as purchasing one of their sponsorship packages. February 23rd is the date on it. Sorry, I should have primed you on that. I'll talk about something else. I'm trying to come back to that.
She has it.
What have we done in the past?
So in the past, we did the champion, is that what it says?
Champion.
The champion, which gives us a table plus all those other things, and then we did a second table for $400.
That would come from council funds.
I believe that's where it's come from in the past.
Did we fill all of the seats, do you know?
Yes, we have.
And what do we have left in council funds after the grants we put out?
Did we around 4,000, I believe.
That we still have left?
Citizen
fiscal year?
Day expenses also.
Hmm?
We have Citizens Day. expenses.
Right, then we were trying to keep how much for Citizens Day, a couple thousand, was it, or what?
I think around 1,000 is what we spent last
1,000.
year, but it all depends on what we get for donations.
Sure, but we could do what we've done with 1,400.
Who would come? Would it be for council, a table for council,
Council, spouses.
and then a table for staff?
Yeah.
Well,
That would like to come, or how do you select staff for that?
Well, usually it's been, anybody want to go, and we don't, there's not usually a lot of people that want to go.
Just wanna make sure it's fair, We can't send everybody, but
Yeah.
right, but I hope that we mix it up, council and staff.
Yeah.
Tables.
I'm okay with trying to do that, do the 1,000 and then seeing if they would do the additional table for 400. Think everybody okay with that?
I like it.
Let's support the chamber.
Support the chamber, yes. So March 28th, we're having a city county meeting, so those are gonna get back after a long hiatus with COVID, so it'd be nice to get out and talk with our peers and if I were mayor, those are their, you were on the council, the city's been really big seat at the table as far as placing and winning the if I were mayor contests that are happening every year in the schools. We've had really good success with that. All the information's on our website.
Statewide, right?
Yeah, it's statewide.
It ends Friday. I've heard from 2 teachers that most of their students in their classes are participating. So we may get a lot. That might be a little more funding we'll need.
Fine.
Mr. Musin called me and tried to get me to come into his classroom. I was like,
That's great.
try the mayor first.
So. There's a lot of good work going on, and the mom had sent me something from the Public Works, American Public Works Association has a magazine that comes out and it has Aaron. We're like featured as the city does. It's Aaron Kunders out at the wastewater plant got highlighted for this project he's done with these pumps that pump the sodium hydroxide, the chlorinating pumps. There's a really nice feature article on this. Paints the city in a very positive, proactive, forward-looking kind of light. Sharon DeRoe and Dave Elder gave a presentation also at a recent conference on the master planning process for their water and wastewater master plans and how we handle that. It's the direction we got with that. And then and Tim Underwood also got certifications for additional certifications for infrastructure, which is all just really positive things. And it just shows that we're holding our own, we're also being giving back to that community too. Mohammed hosts these meetings with all the regional works directors and they meet together and they talk about projects. And it's that level of communication is just really great. And it's happening at lots of levels. So I think the Main Street, the business forum, CP, we're all Aaron's pie is getting a lot bigger. So that's all I have. So
Good.
that's
Great, thank you, Don. Okay. So we're gonna adjourn this meeting.
We're gonna go into executive session.
We're gonna go into executive session next. Following the conclusion of the council's work session, an executive session is scheduled to take place to discuss real property transactions under ORS 192.6602E and consult with counsel. Potential litigation under ORS 192.6602H. Representatives of the news and media staff and other persons as approved shall be allowed to attend the executive session, and all other members of the audience are asked to leave the council chamber.